Hey guys, this is Frankie Washer Frankie, and today we are doing Butterick's B6530 View B Petticoat. I'm going to be using tulle and taffeta, so I'm going to go ahead and cut this out. 开始吧. Okay, so I've cut out all the pieces, and I'm not going to focus on the tools yet. So I have this one, and what I'm going to do is I had to cut out 2 of these on fold, and this is basically the yoke, and I'm going to put the good sides to good sides and match up the notches and sew on both sides and sew this down. Now the instructions are telling me that I have to do a double stitch and then press to one side, so that's what I'm going to do with this. I also have to do that with 14, which is the upper ruffle, and I also have to do this with the lower ruffle, and the lower ruffle has 10 of these, and I have to stitch them all at the side. So I will see you at the sewing machine. Double stitch, double stitch. I have to do it to this side. I'm gonna do it to this side first. It's a table it's on. Like, if I go too fast, my sewing machine likes to have hydraulics, jump up and down. It's kind of funny. Alright, on to the next layer. This is the upper ruffle. Behave. Now doing the double stitch. The yoke has been sewn up with the double stitch. Basically, now we're going to press the seam allowance to one direction and then press, which I need to go take care of that. Then once you do that, you need to designate what your center front and where your center back is. And you need to designate that on all your ruffles, on your tulle, and on your taffeta. So I'm going to pull all this on up. Alright. So what I did for this, so that I can figure out what is center front and which one's the difference between my center fronts and my side seams. For my center front and center back, I did a yellow thread. I just thread traced it by hand. And to know what the side seam is, I just thread traced red so that I know. I did the same for the tulle. For the side seam, I did mine in red, and for the center front / center back, I did the yellow. Now, in order to find your center front and center back, because it gets a little bit, when things get really long, it gets a little bit more, ooh. So let's pretend, since it's so long, I'm going to use this scrap piece. But let's pretend that this is sewn up and this is one side seam. When it's folded over, this is your other side seam. When you fold this over like this, this here is going to become your center front and your center back. And this is where, when you start matching your center fronts up and you start matching your sides up like this. So once you've done all that and you find your center fronts and center backs on the tulle and on the taffeta, you're going to, let me show you on this one because that one's the really long piece. You know what, never mind, not on that one. Back to this one. Basically, you're going to do your gather stitch. And since this one is so long, but yeah, you're going to do your gather stitch and you're going to do it from seam to seam. I don't think you can really see it that good on this one. Let me show you on a taffeta one. Alright. So you're going to do your gather stitch from seam all the way to your seam. This way, it gives you like less to have to work with when you're trying to gather everything in. Gives you more control. So yeah, and so now what I'm going to go do is I'm going to join the lower layer to the upper layer. So I'm going to just pin center fronts to center fronts, center backs to center backs, and sides to sides, and then I'm just going to start gathering everything in. So I'm going to start pinning, and then I'm going to come back when I start doing the gathering. Alright. Okay, so I have my side seams here marked. That's right here. And then I have my center front and center back pieces. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to gather. So this part here is my yoke. I have attached the tulle layer. This is the upper ruffle, and I've already gathered and attached it to the yoke. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach the taffeta ruffle to the yoke. So all of this has to get fitted into this from here to here. So with your gathers, find your string. This one, let's see. Oh, nope, not that one. This one. So basically you're gonna just start pulling at your gathers. And try to do it as even as possible. And the same process you do this is the same process you do to attach all, like your lower ruffle to your upper ruffle on your taffeta and your lower ruffle and your upper ruffle onto your tulle. You do the same method. You're basically doing it in quarters, center front to a side seam, and then you're trying to make it all fit into this space. So we have to keep on going because we have not made it there. I'm going to pull from the other side now. Okay, that looks like good. Now I need to even the ruffles out some more. And sometimes what I like to do, so if I don't want my gathers to undo themselves, what I like to do is wrap the thread around and then up at the top of the pin, just so that things don't move. But at the same time, if you need to go back and fix stuff, you can just pull the pin out and then it releases everything. So that way if you're messing with this, you're not losing your gathers you just put in. Probably do the same on this side too. And you don't have to do a whole lot of crazy wrapping. You just wrap like maybe 2 or 3 times on the top, then wrap 2 or 3 times on the bottom, then come back to the top, do it one more time, and leave it be. Alright, so now I'm going to pin, and make sure when you're attaching all this that your tulle layer is sandwiched in between, because that is the layer that's going to be on top. And I'll show you once this gets sewn up. Alright, so now we have matched up the center front to the side seam and everything matches into it. Now I'm going to go ahead and do the rest to all the other sides. Alright, so now we have the tulle layer attached into the yoke here. We also have the taffeta layer attached into the yoke. What you can do is make sure your seam allowance is pointing up, and you can stitch along here. You can do it also on the tulle, have it up, stitch there, and you can also do it on the yoke, have it facing up, and you can stitch around here. So now I'm going to focus on doing the elastic. I'm going to turn this inside out. Oh, and I'm also on the tool here for the tool layer. I'm not going to be putting lace trim on the instructions. It says to do so. I'm just going to leave that out, but feel free to add that. You can add that at the very beginning step, or you can add it here, or you can add it at the very end. It's totally up to you, but I am not adding it for myself. All right. So now when you're putting the elastic, what you're going to do is you're going to fold it over, folding over 1/4 of an inch. Then my elastic that I have here is an inch elastic. So you're going to fold it over about an inch, maybe a little bit more, so that your elastic can move around in there. And then you're going to sew it all the way around. And then you're going to make sure you leave yourself a gap. Now, what you usually would do is put an elastic, not an elastic, you'd put a safety pin on, and then you would feed it through like all the way around after you've sewn it. I don't have a safety pin, so what I'm going to do instead is I have marked on here from one end to one end of how much I need of this, and I'm going to sew the elastic inside. Now the tricky thing about it is if you're not careful, you can accidentally hit the elastic with your needle and sew it in, and if that happens, that means you're not going to be able to pull your elastic through. So you have to be very careful when doing that so you don't sew it on. But that is what I'm going to do. I'm basically going to be doing the same thing. I'm just going to have the elastic in at the same time. So basically, I'm going to have to go around, have this in here, fold this back, pin this down, and pin all the way around with the elastic inside. So I'm going to go ahead and take care of that now. So now I have pinned all the way around, and so now I'm going to sew at the edge, and I will see you when I finish that. Okay, so now I have put in the elastic in the waistband, and what I realized is I didn't show you how I closed it. So let's pretend like this is an opening, and you take your elastic and it's going to be poking out like that. What you're going to do is you're going to take the two ends and you're going to zigzag stitch up and down a couple of times. Then once you've done that, you're going to allow that to go back into the waistband. Once that's there, you're going to make sure that everything is smooth, and you're going to stitch down and then adjust the waistband as needed. So now we're going to move on to the hem. The reason why my hem is so wide is because I don't want it sticking from underneath my skirt, so I add a little extra more. So what you're going to do is you're going to straight stitch all the way around the skirt. Then you're going to flip it up, and by stitching this actually helps you to flip it up. Then you're going to top stitch down all the way around. Then you're going to trim your excess seam allowance off, and you're going to do that all the way around. Then you're going to flip it up one last time, and you're going to top stitch it all the way around, and that is how you do your baby hem. Now, because I shortened the taffeta layer, I had to shorten the tulle layer. So what I basically did was took scissors and I went all the way around. And just make sure that you reinforce your side seams, because you're basically going to be cutting through them. Now, if you have attached lace, then you're probably not going to have to trim it. But if you attached the lace trim and you have not shortened it to the width you need, unfortunately, if you find out that you have to shorten it and you already have the lace on, you're going to have to take the lace off, trim it to or shorten it to the length you need, and then you're going to have to reattach it on. So before you even get to this step, just make sure that this is the length that you desire and this is the length that you want before you even attach lace. Alright, so now I'm going to basically finish this part of the hem, and then we're going to see the final product. Here is the finished petticoat. When I was cutting it out, I put in extra inches, and I realized I really didn't need that much, so I took it back out of the taffeta layer, but I left it in on the tulle layer. And basically what I did for the tulle layer, I added 2 extra inches to the pattern on fold, so it's technically 4 in all. So here's the final product. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.